Hey guys, it's me, Cali. Today I'm going to share with you how I created these adorable polymer clay bat magnets. They're refrigerator magnets. You can also make wall hangings, and I thought they were really a lot of fun. I was inspired to create these for my grandchildren, and I decided they'd be great for kids of all ages. So I also have some other examples, and I'll share those with you at the end of the video. If you're interested, I'd love it if you'd stick around. I'll show you how I did it. It was really easy and fun. Okay guys, let's get started. I'll show you everything we're going to be using as we go along. But the first thing we're going to use is some Primo Sculpey clay. This is in black, and this is what I choose to use. You can use any kind of oven baked clay if you'd like. I'm sure this would work with air dry clay as well, but I haven't tried it. So I'm using this, and I'm also using a ball jar lid, and that is what inspired this creation. I was doing some canning and I had an abundance of these lids, so I'm choosing to use one of these. If you don't have one of these, you can just trace out a circle on a piece of cardboard and use that as well. So whatever you have. And you're going to preheat your oven to 275 degrees Fahrenheit. And you're going to condition your clay. So basically work it and work with it until you can roll it out easily. And you can either use a roller to roll out some clay, and I've already done a nice sheet here, or I used my pasta machine on the 3 setting, and 1 is my thickest setting on my pasta machine, but you want it fairly thin. So roll out a nice slice, and then I like to cut on glass. So I'm just rolling it out. Doesn't have to be perfect. We're going to be putting a lot of things on top of it. And then using our jar or the circle as a template, I'm using an X-Acto knife. Now obviously if you're working with children, you're going to use, precautions. You don't have to use an X-Acto knife. You can use, anything to trace around and cut through this. And you're going to cut out 2 circles of this clay, just like that. Okay. And I've already done that right here. And then you're going to take your lid. Now this next step is optional, but I'm choosing to use some Sculpey Bacon Bond. You can use PVA glue if you don't have this, or you can just put the clay right on the cardboard or the lid. It will adhere, but I am going to use some of this. And we're just going to put some down. You don't need a lot. And front and back. And then you're just going to literally work this together and close up these edges here. Work it back and forth. If you have air bubbles, pop them. You can, use your little X-Acto knife or any kind of a needle tool or anything. You want to make sure you don't have any air bubbles. And I've already done one of those too. Okay. So then you have something that looks like this. And you can actually see the rim on this side, which is what I'm going to consider my front. But if you don't have that, it doesn't matter. All right. So there's that. And then the next step, I'm going to roll out some purple clay. And you could do the color of your choice. I have some Primo Sculpey in different purples. And I've already rolled out a nice slice. And using that inside of the ball lid, this inside rim as a guide, I just kind of pressed it down into the clay, and you can see that inner circle. Okay, and so I just went around that inner circle and voila, cut out an inner circle. All right. And then at this point, I'm going to texturize it. Now, you don't have to if you don't want to, but I wanted to. And you can use, you know, real texture stamps, if you will. I have some of these cool ones by Lisa Pavelka. Or you can use something as simple as, this is an old button, and I'm going to use this. So I have my circle there, and if you want, you can, I'm going to lightly mist this with a water spray bottle, as well as my little button, just to prevent it from sticking. It's a little warm in here. And I'm just going to go around and press in here and create texture all over our piece. Don't distort the clay too much, because you still want it to fit into that little, you know, circle. So I'm just going to take it off this glass and then go back to our original one here, and same thing, you could take some of that bacon bond if you have it. If not, like I said, PVA glue, or the clay will adhere to itself. Just make sure that you have, you know, pressed it down fairly well. So we're going to do this. All right, now you can see it is a little distorted, okay, but I'm just going to take one of my tools here and kind of go around and play with it until it's kind of, you know, filled in there. If you lose some of your texture from messing with it, you can go back in and play around again. I already have one here finished. Okay, so you have that, and then the next thing we're going to do is roll out some more black clay, or the same black clay that you had. And I have a sheet here, and I've had bats on the brain this week. I did a earlier tutorial in the week on a bat mobile, and I actually cut a bat template out of a piece of cardboard. Again, I just used a old notebook cover and drew out a bat. You can use cookie cutters, you know, get silhouettes online, whatever, simple shapes, and you can do any shape. You know, a witch's hat, a witch, a pumpkin, a ghost, anything. I just chose to use bats. So using this as a template, and it's a little hard for you to see, but again, being very careful, I'm just going to trace around my bat. It doesn't have to be perfect because we're going to play with it afterwards and make it look texturized and add some details to it. All right. So there we have our bat. And once again, going back to our original circle here, we are going to, I just put it directly on the bat itself. You could put the detail on the bat before you do this step or after. I'm just going to choose to do it now, and I'm going to kind of eyeball where I want this to go, and we can move it around. All right. And using my little tool here, I'm going to just kind of play with it a little bit, situate it how I want it, even it up. This polymer clay is so forgiving, and all these little imperfections, if you will, make it look really cool and texturized in my book. So when you're happy with the way you have it on there, then you can go in and make some details. Now, at this point, you have an option, or I chose to have an option of what type of eyes to use, and you can either use googly eyes or paint on some eyes with acrylic paint. You can actually use, these are small glass beads, black beads. You have some options, okay, but you need to make a choice before you bake it. If you're going to use these black beads, you set them in now. Make sure that they're glass and not plastic. They will melt. If you're going to use googly eyes, like I am, I'm going to just take the bottom of a paintbrush, you could use anything, and actually put where I want those eyes to be. There you go. Alright, and I'm also going to just lightly make some texture in the wings. As well as just trying to, you know, outline where his finger bones would be, as well as around his body. And there we go. I'm going to just give him a little nose and a mouth and maybe some texturized fur for his body. Okay, so just back and forth. You could be as detailed as you want or not. I'm going to give him some ear imprints, kind of make it look like he's got some fur on his head. Do some lines there. Alright, and same thing within the wings, just some texture lines. And once you're happy with him, and you could play around for a while, but you guys get the idea. Then the next step, I chose to add an embellishment around the outer edges, and using this really cool chartreuse color, again, Primo. I just, if you can roll it out into snakes, if you will, you know, like long snakes, just like you learned in 3rd grade, like this. Alright, or if you're, I have this extruder, and this is by Makins, and I already have the disc in there. It comes with a lot of different discs, but this one I love because you don't have to have the pressure from trying to push a plunger. So this works really great, and we're just going to extrude some snakes here. Alright, and you can make these as short or as long as you want, but I thought about 2 inches was good. And cut some off, and then also I'm going to cut one of these into just little small pieces that we're going to use to roll up and make little balls with. Okay, so I have a bunch of those cut already, and going around the outside edge, again, I'm choosing to use some Bacon Bond. You don't have to, but I'm going to start with a round circle, and I'm just making it round. And I tried to keep this simple so kids could do this, you guys, but you could get as detailed as you'd like. Actually, the kids will put us to shame, but I'm just putting that in there, and I'm pressing down, and I'm making a little hole in there. You can actually see the metal of the disc shining through, but I'm going to choose to put a gemstone in that later. But again, do what you want, do what you feel. So we're going to start with a dot, and then I'm going to take one of these little snakes, and I'm just going to roll it out on either end and kind of make a point. Okay, and the same thing here. And then I'm going to put out a little of the bacon bond just around the edge here. And I'm going to carefully just kind of form this into a spiral. Okay. And then I'm going to go in the opposite direction for this side. So it looks like that, like an S, all right? And then I'm going to decide how I want it to sit, and you can pull it out a little bit if you want, but we're basically going to put it down here. Now, at this point, if you want, you could take some type of a needle tool or a needle itself, a toothpick. You can poke holes in these swirls to give them some texture, or you can leave them smooth. Whatever you choose to do. The more texture, the more it will pick up any kind of after things, you know, if we want to do antiquing or put micro rubs on these or something. But for the sake of this, I'm going to leave it smooth. I will show you some examples when we're done here, though, of different ones. All right, and we're just going to alternate this pattern all the way around the circle, all right, until you have something that looks like this, all right, and we're almost ready to bake. Now, at this point, if you'd like, you can add, I have Pearl X powders in all different colors. If you want, you can highlight your clay. You could, you know, whatever you want to do. I'm not going to do any of that right now. I'm going to bake it just as is. But if you're not going to use turn this into a refrigerator magnet or a magnet, and you want to use it as a wall hanging, this would be the time that you would make that choice. And turning it over, you're just going to, I love to work with pop tabs, like from drinks, and literally you can take one of these pop tabs, kind of bend it, all right, and then kind of figure out where it's going to go. And at this point, you can press it into the back. All right. I'm going to make this a magnet, so I'm not going to really do this, but I'm just showing you. And then just take some more clay and cover this bottom here. And make sure it's in there really well, and then you could bake it like that, okay? But I'm going to make these into magnets, so I'm not going to do any of that. So at this point, I'm choosing to go into the oven, and we are going to bake these for 35 minutes, okay? Bake according to your package directions, but that's what I'm going to do in a well-ventilated area. And, you know, I use things that are only dedicated to clay baking. I have this tile here. I'm just going to put it on the tile, and then I have a glass pie plate. Okay, so I'm going to just put that in the oven, and I will see you back here when that's done. So about 35 minutes at 275 Fahrenheit. Okay guys, this is nice and cool, and I have a couple just to show you some examples. Now at this point, you could put your googly eyes on or paint them on and put a magnet on the back or however you're going to hang it and call it done. Or you could antique it, which basically brings out textures, and I like to use this Americana multi-surface satin in black tie, and I have watered it down a lot in a palette dish, and I'm just going to take one of these, have it on a paper towel here, and we're just going to paint all over the whole surface. I know it looks very scary when you're doing this, Okay, and before that has a chance to really set up, I'm just going to blot it off. Now this brings out a lot of texture, and same thing if you wanted to use mica powder at this point. Before the paint, mica powders would do the same thing if you rub them on and bring out the texture here. And you can go back and forth with it until you're happy with the way it looks. And then when that's nice and dry, then you would go ahead and, like I said, either add your googly eyes or paint some eyes, and you could do further embellishments. I like to use little gemstones around the edges. So that's one way. You could also use some metallic lusters. I have this one by DecoArt that's silver, and you can rub them on to bring out texture. I have this one by Nuvo that's purple, and I'll show you these in 1 second. Or if you want a more, if this was really dark, you could use some gold. Again, I have some examples. I also have used my Signal ball pen. If you want to add in little fangs or details on the eyes, this works well. So let me show you a different one, and I'll use those things. I'm going to use some of this embellishment mousse. And I just have some brushes here. I'm going to use the purple and just highlight the inner pieces of the wing. Now you could go over this whole project if you want with any of these. You can make them as dark or as subtle as you'd like. These are just ideas, guys. You do whatever you want. You could paint them with acrylic paint. You could use old eyeshadows for sparkle. Okay, so I'm going to do the purple there, and then I'm going to go in with some of that silver, and it's very subtle. And once we glaze these, that'll bring out the color also. And the silver, I'm just going to lightly brush all around. And again, they just bring out the texture, and use a very light hand, because a little goes a long way with these. And you can go over the whole face. Okay, and if you want to further outline things, you can even go over with a black Sharpie marker, or if you make a mistake, or whatever, you want to add more veining, outline it. And like I said, with the white Signal, I can add some little fangs if you want. Very subtle. Okay. And for googly eyes, I'm just going to use some Aleene's Clear Tacky Glue and put that right in their little sockets here. And I have some assorted bling and eyes here. Instant personality. I'll be sending these to my grandkids. I know they're going to love them. Okay. And then in these little circles that I've created before, same thing. I'm going to go around with some Aleene's. Okay. And I am adding, I have little teeny purple bling. And I just put a little touch of glue on the end of a paintbrush, and I'm going to use that to help me pick up my gems. Now, if you have they sell wax sticks to help, but it's very easy to go in and pick them up this way and set them down instead of trying to grab them with your fingers. So, all right. And then once you have that done all the way around, which of course you know I have one done here, then we're going to glaze it. And I have some Sculpey Gloss Glaze. If you don't have this, just make sure whatever glaze you do have is compatible with polymer clay, because they're not all the case. Okay, and I'm just going to go in with a brush and very liberally go around the whole entire piece. I'm going to avoid those googly eyes. I don't want them to be filmy. Okay, so I'll go all the way around. And then once the glaze is dry, we're going to add our magnet. And you want a strong magnet. These are heavy, and if you don't have a strong enough magnet, it's just going to, you know, you put it on your refrigerator, it's going to go right to the ground. So I did order some neodymium magnets on Amazon, and I think they were like $5 for a pack of 6. And they look like they're all packaged up very nicely, but they look like this, and they're super strong. You have to slide them apart, and they have these rings in between. All right, so pretend the glaze is dry there, and I'm just going to take the magnet, and I have this E6000 glue, which is super toxic. Again, make sure you're in a well ventilated place, and use caution with kids, but I'm just going to put a little smear and place this on the back of my magnet here. All right, and we're going to let that dry, and then we are done. Now let me set that aside, and I'll show you some other ones that I've done. Okay, here's a completed one that's exactly the same as what we just did. Okay, love it. And here's one with the bead eyes. I did the black bead eyes, and then I also used the Signo pen to just put some pupils and some fangs, so that's a little scarier looking. And this one I did, this is more of like a goth. I don't know how well you can see this, but I thought for older people, not kids, might find this attractive. Older people like me, right? And I just used gold rub and buff. I antiqued it with the black paint, and then I used gold rub and buff, and it does have the beady eyes. It's just, you know, a darker look to it. So something different, just trying to give you some ideas. And then last but not least, I talked about other shapes and things. You know, I had to do a witch, and I just, you know, cut out shapes that look like a witch's silhouette. So I hope you guys enjoy this video. I'll take some pics and insert them at the end. I had a lot of fun making these. I know my grandkids are going to love them, and I think you guys will too. So please give me a thumbs up if you like this video, and let me know if you make one. I would love to hear if you've done it yourself. Tag me so I could check it out, and have a happy Batty Halloween. I'll talk to you guys very soon, okay? Take care. Peace and love.